we're joined now by the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Bosun Tijani, and at our Overflow studio is Sandra Maximiano, who is the Chair, Board of Directors at ANACOM, and that's Portugal's National Regulatory Authority for Communications Sector. Thank you, both of you, for joining us on Newsnight tonight. Let me start with you, the Honourable Minister, Bosun Tijani. First, what's the purpose of the ITU, that's International Telecoms Union? What's the objective of this summit that you're having?
Thank you so much for having me. I think today is a day and a moment of pride for us as a people. As you probably noticed from the video that was shown, Nigeria hosted for the first time in the history of ITU the summit, the Global International Summit for Submarine Cable Resilience in the world. And the essence of this gathering, which is a second phase, actually in the morning we had the first advisory board meeting, and the advisory board is truly a platform for multiple stakeholders to gather and ensure that we can strengthen the backbone for digital economy in the world. Most of us are users of internet, but what we do not know is that the internet that we use is actually being carried through a cable that is mostly under the sea. Close to 95 or 99% of the traffic on internet goes through these subsea cables. For instance, we're privileged that I'm co-chairing this board. Nigeria is co-chairing this board with Portugal, with Professor Maximiano. And many people are not aware that most of the cables that brings internet to Nigeria is actually also from Portugal, which is quite historic. This is the bit that the public is not aware of. But the reality is that lately, the world is witnessing more and more cable cuts. And whenever there's this cable cut, it brings the entire economy to a grind. You can imagine your ability to be able to do banking services will go to a halt. The ability to be able to use communication services will go to a halt. So when we had the cable cuts in March last year, I personally reached out to the International Telecommunications Union that there's a need for us to strengthen collaborations and coordinations amongst countries on how we go about ensuring that these cables are a lot more resilient and how we can also fast track the repair of it. Okay. And the ITU decided that we should have a global body that is responsible for mainstreaming best practices in terms of how we protect telecommunications critical backbone, which is the subsea cables.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. Professor Maximiano, thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. Let me ask you, the Minister has highlighted some of the challenges, including increasing cuts to these cables. Some statistics say between 95 to 99% of international data traffic is being transported through submarine cables, yet they are poorly protected. Why is this so?
So it's actually because, of course, the countries are not all together through land. Yeah, so most of us, we are separated by the sea. So it actually has to be because, and not even talking about countries that are just islands or other countries that actually have island regions and isolated regions like Portugal, for instance. So we have two islands like Açores and Madeira, and there is no other way of having communication that is secure except through submarine cables. Of course, nowadays we have satellite communications, but it's far from reliable still as it is the data traffic and communications connectivity through submarine cables. So it's extremely important. The world gets connected through these channels, through this critical infrastructure. And because it's so critical, it's so vital, we have to protect it in the best way.
No doubt. Let me come back to you, Minister Tijani. One can only imagine the impact of this disruptions on the global economy or global connectivity, especially Nigeria, since we've experienced this before. I'd like you to, paint a picture for us. And on the issue of protecting submarine cables, it has to be done in a sustainable manner. Is there a plan in place or a policy to ensure that there's capacity that's built in terms of Nigerians being equipped with the technical know-how to troubleshoot when the need arises?
No, absolutely. I think there are certain countries in the world with the right protocols whereby once there's this cable cut, you can quickly fix them. And it requires special equipment, vessels that are very dedicated to this service. In some cases, it requires government licensing and all sort of skills that are not commonplace, right? And part of what we're aiming to do here is saying, as we all prioritize connectivity, Nigeria, for instance, is investing in 90,000 kilometers. We want to truly find a lasting solution to connecting our people and giving them access to meaningful connectivity. But all this investment will be useless if we cannot protect what is actually the main source of connectivity. So what you're going to see with this advisory board and the summit, which will be annual and it will go from one country to the other, what you're going to see is documentation of best practices, sharing of best practices, but also ensuring that protocols are set. Protocols like how do you manage redundancy? So when the cable cut happened, because Nigeria is blessed, for instance, with 8 submarine cables. So when we had the cable cut last year, there was a lot of work that was done to shift most of the users from the cables that were bad into those that weren't affected. The protocols for getting that done is something that government must have in place. But we also have to think of this. Submarine cables are not just based in a country. Right. It connects country to country. So the protocols for fixing it, for safeguarding it, it's something that has to require, that has to involve the collaboration and commitments of multiple countries, which is why the summit here today is important, and this advisory board is also extremely important as well.
Great. Minister, I think commending you and congratulating the countries in order. You're hosting this, over about 50 countries attending this summit, so that's kudos to the country, including Sandra, who is visiting, and I hope that you have a great time while you're in Nigeria. But like you heard the minister, when we had that disruption, I think it was last year, March, it was also, I think it affected some part of your country, very close to Portugal as well. But I have to ask you, we have these high-stake meetings, such as this summit happening, resolutions are reached, but what are the concrete steps to ensure they're translated into real-world actions? But I guess the first place to start is to ask you, Sandra, what are the commitments made today to shift the needle and change the narrative when it comes to this issue?
So, as it was mentioned before, but this is really, really important because one of the most difficulties that we have when we get not only just different countries working together, but also different organizations within each different countries. So we are talking about advisory body that includes NGOs, that includes government, that includes regulators, that includes firms. So, and each of these organizations, each entity has their own interests, has their own, they maximize their own goals, their objectives. So a big challenge that we have here is to have everyone together and align incentives. And we are all here for the same purpose, which is to build more resilience and to protect this connectivity, the worldwide connectivity. So it's extremely important, an advisory body like we managed to create and also what we achieved today in the summit, because we managed to align different incentives from different stakeholders. So it's really important to have all these countries together. More than actually the different countries and regions is the different stakeholders. And because there is a big set of stakeholders involved in protecting and, of course, repairing, maintaining these submarine cables. So I think what we achieved today is no doubt a big thing. And as you said, I think it's a big compromise, and I think everyone was show that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me ask you the same question, basically. Mr. Minister, I mean, what exactly will be Nigeria's role in ensuring submarine cables are protected globally? It's a global union, but then again, there's the Nigeria end of it.
Absolutely.
What, in practical terms, will Nigeria be bringing to the table?
No, I think what we're bringing to the table again, which is why I believe everyone should be proud of today, is that Nigeria is co-chairing this body with Portugal. This is a body that is highly technical, is dealing with an issue that is global in nature, and is important to the entire world. So that's the first step. We have our leg in the room, we are at the table, we're going to be able to contribute, which means we're also then exposed to best practices from all over the world. So whatever Professor Maximiano is doing in Portugal, which is a major submarine hub in the world, Nigeria can now have access to it and learn from their best practices and use that to improve how we go about it. We should also remember when the cable cut in West Africa happened, Nigeria was it was the only country actually that got capacity back to up to 80% in 2 days. Most of the other countries, it took them 1 week to even to manage to be able to manage the redundancy. Nigeria got that done in 2 days.
So Nigeria is up to the task.
Oh, we are up to the task. And I think by being part of this body, we're going to even have a stronger ecosystem of people who understand submarine cables. Remember what I said earlier, we have 8 submarine cables. Some countries don't even have 1. This is why we're investing in bringing them into our country, but we also have to ensure that we can protect them. We have the skill set, the know-how, but most importantly, that we're partnering with global organizations, both countries, private organizations, civil society organizations that are responsible for protecting the resilience of the backbone for connectivity in the world. Okay.
Sandra, if I can ask you, I mean, what are the additional functions of the advisory body? Do they really have the powers to enforce decisions made and reached as a body? And I mean, Nigeria is key, as the minister has emphasized, but can you speak to capacity and capability on the continent, and globally? We see a lot happening with China and the US, but has the other continents, particularly Africa, have they shown enough, when it comes to protection of these submarine cables, and what can they do to improve on that, in your own opinion?
Yeah, so definitely learn from the best practices. And I think Nigeria here has an extremely important role. So not all countries are like Nigeria that have some redundancy. So you have some more than one cable actually landing in Nigeria. So it actually helps with having redundancy when a problem happens. But many other countries don't. And so we need, of course, to focus on those regions in the world where redundancy doesn't exist, where a cable cut and lack of connectivity will have a major impact. But the major impact today is not only on those countries, it's globally. We are all connected. All our economies depend on the other economies in the world. So it's on our best interest, of course, in making this redundancy and resilience worldwide. And I think an advisory body is actually, it shows that this is possible because we are all here for the same goal. And that's basically the big messages that we got here today was collaboration, coordination is the key. And we should all speak together and come up with meetings like this where experts share very valuable knowledge and information. And I think this is extremely valuable knowledge, and it allows actually within each country to build like a book of best practices. And for instance, even like to set up some exercises and even working groups in each country and doing some exercises on submarine cable resilience, for instance, what we should do if there is a cut, how we should proceed. So this is extremely important. That is something we have been focusing a lot in Portugal, also bringing together different stakeholders within the country and build these exercises. So we are actually trying to create these best practices. And I think every country should do that. But some, of course, have more resources than others, and an advisory body can help on that, can actually help people to be more conscious, but also have all this energy, this positive energy as well.
I mean, Sandra just made a very important point there. You need the deep pockets. You need a lot of funding to be able to push this. How solid is that? Very quickly, in 30 seconds, Minister, you have the last word before we say thank you very much.
No, I think Nigeria is rightly placed. Like I said, with 8 submarine cables, there's a lot of investment that has gone into that.
Great.
I actually see Nigeria becoming a hub in the West African region as well.
Great.
But for us to be able to do that, we have to ensure that we're taking global leadership, not just
Fantastic.
local.
Thank you very much for joining us. Bosun Tijani is Minister, Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, alongside Sandra Maximiano, who's the Chair, Board of Directors, ANACOM. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight tonight.